I am one of your hosts, Tom Daly. Got my good friend here, Mr. Michael Johnson,
Hello.
who, who says hello usually when I say that. And today we have the pleasure of interviewing our good friend who we've not seen in quite some time, Mr. John Peltier. Mr. Peltier, it has been
Good
quite some
afternoon.
time. Yes, good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. And it's been a little while, and
Yes,
we were just wondering, since graduation, like, what have you been up to, sir?
I've been hiding. No, I spent a lot of time in Georgia, so that's the first level of the answer. What have I done since Jesuit? There's so many years. I spent a good bit of that time in the tech industry, building, or started in testing, but then got into product management kind of role where I had P&L for some different software products, and that was sort of the most significant portion of my adult career. Since then, I've opened a small business, and I still have that. And now I'm getting into some AI consulting. So I'm probably the only drywall person or drywall business owner in the country who's also consulting companies on AI.
You know
So
what?
there's
That
that,
might be that might be the niche that breaks all niches right there, my
right?
friend. That's what
Right.
I get
There's
keep everybody keep talking about right now.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. I left. I obviously '88, the graduation. I spent 2 years at UNO, and then ended up at Georgia State, and that was the UNO of Georgia or of Atlanta, and so I finished up there. But the main reason was career prospects in a bigger city, and my folks decided to relocate out of the area, primarily because my father was mobility impaired, and at that period of time he had gone through Betsy, and was a little bit fearful of being trapped in at some point by another flood. So, not to say he predicted anything about what might happen in the future, but it was sort of it's going to happen eventually, and I want to be somewhere on higher ground because he didn't want to get trapped. So that was his motivation to go find and establish something else outside of his law practice, outside of the New Orleans area, and I decided to go with him because it seemed like I could, wind into some sort of, sort of something where there were some better prospects, and it turned out
Right.
that was true,
Was
at least for what I ended
technology
up in.
was technology the focus through college? Like, was that sort
No,
of an
it was a
industry you had your eye
passion.
on?
It was a
Okay.
passion. So I was doing programming in high school, and during Jesuit, and after, and I tried my hand at sort of C++, some of the more what's the word I'm looking for, more challenging languages. That wasn't a good fit for me. But as tools got better and easier, I started to get more into that. It was a passion, but I really only ended up in tech through meeting someone at a party that told me, "Hey, we're hiring for support. Come talk to us." And I had some proclivity for tech in my retail management days, and it really that was the hint where the support guys would come in from the tech companies, and I would be the one they'd ask for, like, to help them with fixing things on site. So I started to say, it seems to be something I'm good at, and that's sort of how I find my direction.
Okay. So it was the opportunity was in tech support, but that throws you in the middle of everything. So you're having to learn a lot about sort of the products you're supporting and all that other stuff.
Correct, correct. Yeah, it was definitely a learn. It was by chance in a way, but also something that opened a door that I was curious about, and so I decided to take that career change.
Okay.
Um, and it worked out. It worked out fairly well. I sort of progressed through a number of different roles, starting at kind of at the bottom, and you'll put that in quotes, but in tech support, doing more advanced support, then doing software testing, and then I got frustrated because I saw I was testing things that the feature set was built out in the opposite way that the design was written. And I'm not kidding when I say that. And I said, you know what? I need to get at the front end of this process, not at the back. So that was my motivation to move software product management, where I was really driving the requirements and driving designs, not testing something somebody else came up with. And so
Interesting.
that was the small motivation to move into more of a leadership role. Was just seeing the and I'll call it poor quality of the communication and the requirement documents and things that we were dealing with. So I decided to shift in that way.
What kind of software were you working on? Were you like industry specific or?
Different kinds. At the time, I was in dental and orthodontic software. I worked for what ended up being Codex Dental Group, and they bought the business that they acquired the business I was in, which had previously been acquired. So it was kept getting bigger. But we were selling practice management solutions for dentists and orthodontics and oral surgeons, as well as digital imaging, where they would do the X-rays and capture them on screen and manage them there. I was in that industry during the time when 3D imaging became a viable market offering. Which so I was also around when dental implants became a big thing, because as soon as they were able to do 3D images and spot the nerves to safely perform implants, the volume on those took off. Um, that was in the mid 2000 era,
Dental
and I was
offices were the
yeah,
buyers of that software.
correct. Dental
Okay.
offices, orthodontic offices. I focused more on orthodontics than I did anything else, but in that realm. So yes, that those are the buyers, the individual practitioners.
Huh, interesting. So you
It,
got to see that product kind of come to be, it sounds like a little bit, or come to market.
yeah, I
And
did,
then,
and every as you both know, and as the audience knows, every year technology advances. Maybe now more than ever, but every year there's new things and new discoveries and new developments. So being in that field is just fun by itself.
You
yeah,
mentioned AI earlier, and interesting in to the for the layperson. Um, Explain the difference of what you were doing as a software developer back then versus now what AI allows you to do. What does it cut out? What does it help?
Well, it's interesting. So I will say I was more of a business leader in tech than I was a programmer. So yeah, I wasn't actually writing code, but the realm of what is possible now has ballooned. Number one, number two, the cost of building software has gone dramatically down in the last 6 months, even. And a lot of the new AI tools are able to write the code that programmers would previously have to type in by hand. And it's profound that those tools are not completely free of errors. So there are challenges with companies like Amazon recently, I believe, had an outage that was blamed on some code that was AI generated and not checked well enough.
mhm.
So there's this gradual move, but it's also very fast of reducing the labor that it takes to build new software, and it's fascinating to watch. I left product management around the time when ChatGPT was released and the whole large language model became a thing, and now that's part of why I decided I want to sort of put my toe back in working in that area, because what's possible is dramatically different than 4 years ago. But it really just lowers the manual labor of writing software code. That's the big difference. I
So
use. I'm sorry.
does that entice you? And I'm sort of, this is a little bit of a selfish question, but
Yeah.
does that entice you to get into some of that vibe coding and that coding yourself, like directly to start and like launch a software product from scratch? Because theoretically it can be done now. Like,
Yeah.
is
I will say
that's kind of
yes.
where your head is?
A little bit. I just in about 2 weeks ago came to an agreement with a couple of partners that we're starting an AI consultancy It's called Rhino Digital AI, and what our mission is, and the problem that we all see in the market is there are thousands and thousands of AI products being released and features announced and new things, and depending on how much you search for AI in Instagram or TikTok or wherever, your feed becomes overwhelmed with the new offerings. And the challenge that I have, having been away just a few years, is I didn't know where to start. And I think there's a lot of, especially small business owners, that they're too busy running their business to figure out, like, where do I start with all this stuff and how do I do that? Most of those folks are not going to go vibe code their own tools, but there are so many things available they're not using that there's a fairly big gap in the market there. So our objective is to help people figure out, well, what of the things that exist out there now can we actually use to be more productive and save time, make more money. Along with that, yes, we have had conversations about a few thoughts on building things that aren't there yet or don't exist yet, coding some things that are very specific for a single person or small company's needs. So yes, that itch is there. I will admit that.
Well, I gotta say, you're in a little bit of a good position as a small business owner yourself, especially in a small business that's physical, like you're producing a physical product and stuff, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of that out there. But those are the ones that, there's not a lot of use out there that are, in a drywall business, which you got to tell us more about how that came to be at some point, in a
I will.
drywall business, and happen to be not afraid of technology in general, particularly AI, which I think is kind of just
Right.
ramping things up. So have you tackled any problems of your small business yet that you feel like, man, I could go just tell people how to do this and make
Right.
their
Not
lives a little
enough.
better? Not
Not
enough.
enough.
Okay.
I've still only been pursuing this for a month or two. Um, I I was also too busy. I was letting myself get caught up in too much in operations and not actually improving the business from the outside, working on it. But one is I built a quick little relay that includes a Telegram channel or a Telegram account that I use to send requests into my CRM to crank out an estimate a lot faster than it would be otherwise. It saves me probably 10-15 minutes of just coding or entering in fields by hand into my jobber system, but even that 10-15 minutes repeated throughout the week is enough. It opens up a couple of hours. So that one has been helpful. I'm toying with some other things right now. I haven't gone too deep into that yet. And yes, I have a fertile ground for testing things out on my own system or in my own business. It's interesting that as soon as we started talking to it, so we've got a couple of prospects that our new company has been talking to, and I've been overwhelmed with doing the R&D and the homework on figuring out the landscape of AI and how we should help in these specific areas. That's eating a lot of my time right now. I have lots of dreams now, lots of ideas, now that I've been really diving in, and not enough time to solve them all yet.
Well, they'll keep creating new ones, and there'll be problems that the solutions create that we
Of
haven't thought
course.
of yet, and then all that fun stuff. So but okay, so maybe we should back up a second and say, okay,
Yeah.
so as a fellow, I guess in past small business owner myself,
Hmm?
I love the small business journey story. So, you were purposeful about it, right? Like you decided you wanted to have a small business or run a business, and then you went and found that business to run, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
want to put words in your mouth, but I know we touched base a little bit about this way back. So I want to explore that a little bit more. Where'd that come from? How did that evolution happen? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I can walk you through that. There was a period, late 2010s, probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that had a challenging period. My wife and I split up. Had my both my parents had some fairly serious health issues at the same time, And I was also director of a product management team at a venture capital startup. So lots of demands there. So basically, I was overwhelmed, and went through some reflection, figured out that I needed to shift gears a bit. And yes, I'd never actually owned a small business, so I decided to pursue the franchise route. And long story short, I was looking at a few, primarily opportunities in in-home healthcare, and that was partly because I went through the situation with my parents, got very familiar with that, and also home services, and that was because there was and still is a shortage of labor and shortage of service, shortage of people doing the work in home services. And I looked at plumbing and looked at gutters and looked at painting and looked at this. Um, Long story short, I found a growing brand that does drywall repair that I ended up becoming part of. And as part of that reboot of my life that I really did around age 50, I ended up moving back to the New Orleans area. And so that was definitely a shift where I said, all right, I'm gonna kind of go back into a setting that I had missed home for a long time, and decided it was time to come back here and also scratch the itch of owning a business. So since then, I've established. The first couple of years were challenging. I'll say that. We're much more stable now. I've got a couple of crews that essentially it's mostly outsourced to where I can send them out to do the estimates where needed. Most of them I do by phone now, by picture, and have them go out and run the jobs, and I don't have to drive all that often to follow up because I've set the incentives up such that they are incentivized to do good work, and that works well for everybody.
That does work for, well, can you, like, because I know a friend or two that have looked around at franchises, and number one, that exposed me to the fact that there are like franchise brokers out there and all this
Yes,
other
there
stuff.
are.
So like when you were looking for a franchise, your search criteria you said was professional or personal services and home health were the ones that you were looking at, and were you looking for something that gave you a little bit more flexibility, or did you want a playbook to just follow, or,
That's a
you
good
know,
question. So I definitely was looking for something that I was looking for relatively low investment because there's a scale of range of amount of money that it takes to get in. I was
mhm,
looking for something that was proven but yet not necessarily overly mature. So this brand had, I think, 40 to 45 when I joined. There's at 120 now, 130, and generally fairly successful. So I was looking for that. I was looking for good brand or good franchise brand support from the franchisor, and talked to a number of the current owners, and was making sure to listen for the right signals about were they providing more than just an invoice, for the franchise fees. Were they active? Were they coaching? Were they doing all those things? So
right.
those were top of mind. Those are
Were the
top of
people that
mind.
were the
Oh, sorry.
people that started this franchise like owner operator types themselves in the space, or did
They were at the
they?
time, yeah. They were at the
Okay,
time. They sold it to a family of home service brands. It's owned by Belfour. They do commercial or industrial size water damage work. They do have an office here in New Orleans. Um, but that franchise brand bought this Patch Boys brand, I think 5 years ago or four, and at a point that a franchise exists and the founders still own it, there's a point where they tend to go shop it to some of these larger franchisors that then take that brand and sell it a little better nationally, right? So that was where that happened.
gotcha. So it's part of a portfolio of home services now, and
Correct, correct.
they say, okay, when there's a drywall need, there's probably also a, I don't know what need, but another need that sort of correlates with that, or
It
water
can, yeah, it
damage or
can
whatever
work.
those.
It can work that way. We don't have, and I've thought about this. It's still kind of in the brain at a point. There is a water damage franchise that they own as well. That one pairs well with it. There is a plumbing brand that's not here in this market that would be helpful because my referral partners tend to be plumbers or electricians who are doing repairs and also cutting the walls open, cutting the ceilings open to do that, right? So those are there's not a recurring model in wall repair, but there are businesses that frequently open up walls, and that's really what function that serves. So it's definitely a business to business referral situation, but there's not recurring, so it's a little bit different than that.
Okay, wow, that's neat. So you've gotten this thing, you've gotten it to where it's not requiring, you know, 20 hours a day of your time anymore, and you're
Right.
able to sort of start looking and thinking, okay, now how do I want to evolve from here?
Correct.
I've gotten this thing going. Okay, cool. And so
Yeah, it's
but you'd like to keep this going, or would you? Or is
I
there?
well, I'm in the last year of the first agreement. I have 8 months left to figure that out, so I will say I'm leaning towards continuing. I
Okay.
haven't fully decided yet. Just depends on how things play out in the next probably 6 months.
Mhm.
This summer will tell me a lot, but right now I'm always at the worst time to ask me that because during the period from Christmas to Mardi Gras and then towards Easter, things slow down in the home services market here.
Mhm.
A lot of it's the Mardi Gras season, right? But after May or April and May, things usually pick up a lot. So if you ask me that in 2 months, I might say, of course I'm keeping it. I'm it's doing well. So we'll
Right.
see. Um, but that is definitely definitely much less of a strain on the time now that I got smarter about running it as an owner and not an operator as much. So that's been super helpful, which gave me some time to decide what else should I do, what else can I do, and I have enough experience in tech and the interest that I had in the the AI landscape is really I got away from it for a while, maybe a tiny bit too long, but I'm still really good at being a business analyst and going into a small business and understanding what are the things that are causing you pain, what do those workflows look like, where could we plug in some automation, whether it's AI or not, to fix those, to make those better, to save you time. And so that's really where I fit in with the partners that I found to get into that space. And it's a lot of fun. I've missed it. Um, Definitely feel at home doing that work. So I'm fairly excited about the opportunity there.
Yeah, there's no shortage of change coming at you in that space for sure. Uh,
Exactly, exactly.
Was there ever, or you ever consider doing, I could see where there could be potentially like sort of a complementary, I mean, what is you, because you mentioned something about being an owner rather than operator, a complementary franchise, like, something else in that space that sort of deals with the home or something like that, that you could kind of bundle services, bundle your time.
Yeah, I have. I thought about the water damage franchise. I think is the most closely tied.
Hmm.
And it's what I'd have to do is get into things like the dehumidifiers and get mold certified, things like that. The I have a partner that I work with a good bit that's out of Harahan that has a small business and doing that work, and he does really well. And we send. I talk to him a few times a week. We send a lot of work back and forth. So right now, I'm kind of comfortable with that situation as is. But down the line, yes, I have thought about acquiring or starting a complementary business. I do a little bit of side work that's not sheetrock and paint. I do get into flooring sometimes and exterior paint, things like that are not in the wheelhouse of Patch Boys. So I have a little side DBA that I use a little bit, but I don't market it. I don't market it strongly. But it gives me a place where if I have something that's a floor repair or redoing floors in a house, I can handle that. I have crews that can do that work, and it doesn't go through I don't have to pay sheetrock royalties on doing a project that somebody asked me about floors. So I have that. But
What is your marketing strategy? How do you find people?
primarily, I look for and work with referral partners, and I offer incentives to plumbers and to electricians, to HVAC guys that are in companies that are going out and stepping on ceilings or open up the walls to rewire things, and I offer them an incentive. Once if they instead of just walking out of the house and saying, "Well, good luck with that wall," I say, have them give them my card, and I'll give you a gift certificate, for every time somebody chooses to get us to do the repair work. That's effectively how it works. And then other than that, it's a little bit of Facebook, a little bit of Google, but I try to do as much through the partners as I can.
Are those hard to break into? Do you find that they have existing patch or drywall type relationships that you're having to unseat, or not really?
It's a little bit of it's a mix because they're in New Orleans is it's who you know and loyalty to relationships, right? So there's definitely that's not as easy as I would like it to be. So I typically just work with folks and say, look, I know you have people you're already working with. Um, Throw me into the ring or put me in the mix. If your other guy is busy for too long and can't get to it, call me. I'll try to get out there, quicker if we can make that work. And those are typically how I sort of start to work in with companies that have those established relationships, because a lot of them do. A lot of them will tell you. I've had people tell me I got like 10 people I call for that. Well, I said, well, think about it. I can be
Yeah.
the court. Well, I can be the 11th, but I can help to coordinate that because I know which people are good. I have people on roster that I can usually get out fairly quickly, and I'm gonna make sure that they do it right. You don't have to follow them. Or you're doing plumbing work. You don't want to go running
Right.
around to make sure they did the paint correctly, right? I can do that. So
Are those, I bet those guys are like, they have 4 or 5 guys, 10 guys, whatever, on their cell phones, and they just call them or text them and say, I got a deal. And is that how they do it in practice?
more or less, yeah. They'll send a picture and say, can you give me a quote on this? And I'll ask a couple of questions sometimes, like how tall is the ceiling, or um, things like that. And I can usually quote if it's a square that's already been cut out. Those are pretty easy to price on the phone or on the picture, and then I can call one of my folks and make sure they're available.
And the franchisor is the one that helps you with like the estimate and stuff like that. Like they help you price things, or do you have full reign to price things as you want to price them?
I have the flexibility to do that. The training I went through and their pricing model didn't map to what I ran into when I started the franchise. The reason was their franchise model and the training is all about following plumbers and electricians and solar people and whoever else that are cutting ceilings and walls. The thing that I found when I came back to this market, of course, in January of 22, there's a lot of IDA damage around. That's what I was getting calls about. So I wasn't getting calls for a couple of holes in the wall. I was getting calls for 4 of my ceilings caved in, and I've got 6 walls that are soaked and have been cut out. Can you come redo this? So I was doing a much larger projects than the franchise was imagined, or the core of that service. So it took me a while. I had to get through that, and as I started to build the reviews on the different social sites and Angie and all that, then I started to get more traction in the actual repair business that I intended to go into.
That's
Small
interesting.
repair business.
I'd
Small
say
repair business.
I'm sorry to ask so many granular questions, but
No, it's
you can tell that I'm like, like this fascinates me, like this thought process that you've gone through. And as you know, the franchise model in general sort of fascinates me, and the relationships of franchisees and franchisors, and how that seems to evolve over time, and when's the right time to franchise or not.
right.
So
It
it's
is.
just interesting. What did you have any major like surprises in the move to to
I
acquire a
guess
franchise?
I guess. Well, I would say the difference in what was happening on the ground versus what the training was conceptualized around was a surprise. It wasn't. I mean, well, let's put it this way: it was very different. It wasn't a surprise because I knew what hurricanes do and that sort of thing. So as soon as all the ads went live, then I quickly realized, yep, that's what we're going to be as a hurricane business for a while. Um, and that really wasn't the intent because I prefer the smaller projects. They're easier. They're quicker. They're more predictable. All those things, and that's part of why the franchise works. What I was getting was I had to be on the ground because I had to go visit lots and lots of hurricane work. But I will say, surprise wise, not really. I think that honestly, most of what was communicated early on really came to pass. I There's some things that I would do differently, yes, but I wouldn't say it was a massive surprise. I think the things that I would do differently are getting myself out of the operations a little bit quicker. That's the area that I could have improved on if I could go back.
Mm-hmm.
I liked and initially I liked conceptually and at the end of it, day to day, I like going into homes and I like talking to homeowners and selling in that way because I'm selling something that they know they need. I just have to show that we're gonna be the most reliable option to complete the work, and I do fairly well at that. That's fun to me. The internal selling in corporate of selling a leadership team on what is the next thing we should build in the software world, that wasn't as much fun. There was a little more stress to that. The interesting part for me in the role that I was in product was that today, because the cost and the time it takes to build new features has now dropped in the last 4 years more than it ever did while I was in that role, that function in software is now completely different. And those guys are well, why should we debate this for three weeks about what to do next? Just go build it. It'll take 2 hours and we'll just test it. And that concept just blows my mind at how much the world has changed in a matter of like 2 or 3 years. It really does.
That is kind of crazy. Well,
And
it sounds like you're in a time of thought transition right now, and that's always a fun time, especially
I,
when things are changing around us so quickly, it seems.
I agree with you. This little this move into some AI work is invigorating. It really is. I have I spent a lot of time in that corporate product development world, and after a while, it just and I did well, but at the end, I was dealing with a lot of things, and I needed time away. And now that I've had the time away, it's refreshing, and I'm feeling like kind of going back to an earlier phase of my career. I was not smart enough to get involved in building websites when everybody made a fortune doing that in the early 2000s, mid 2000s with website agencies. Now I feel like we're sort of back at that stage of Wild West in technology with loads and loads of opportunity, and I'm not going to miss it this time. So I said I need to get in that world now.
It's awesome. Well, yeah, that's exciting, man. And these guys, are they in the space already, the partners that you found to do this with, or are they a similar situation to you? They're
One's
getting
kind of a
in.
website guy. He has an established website development agency that's been around for 20 years. So he was involved in the early days of building web websites and such. I was not. Um, the other is more from a different line of work. So we're kind of all converging with different sets of skills,
Are they
which
are
is
they
also
local
fun.
people, or that doesn't really matter in the world and what you're getting into?
We're
But
we're
are
all local. We're in Slidell and Pearl River, so we're up the street from each other, and which makes things convenient as well. And it was really friend of a friend. It was that's how the partnership formed. But we just all came at the conversation from we sort of all had interest in the topic, and then we talked it through and realized, well, hey, you can handle this area, I can handle this area, you can handle this, and that covers everything. So hey, let's have some fun. Let's go. a kid. It's as simple as that, and we all got inspired, and now we're trying to conquer the world.
That's great, man. There's plenty of people that fit the description of what you sound like your target market is, though. So you'll have lots of conversations to start, and I'll be fascinated to see sort of the wins you find along the way, because I do sense that there's some, big things to address that some people aren't going to be able to, and but I'm curious to see sort of where the rubber's going to hit the road on all that stuff. What how valuable, how time saving, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think, and Tom, I know you've been technology adjacent or interested or involved. All the three, you've had a passion for it for a long time. I know that there's a lot of small business owners that, and there's a sizable number that have the time to go tinker and have fun, but there's also a large segment that don't. They're just too busy running their own business, and that's
Right.
more of where I expect it will play. Busy physician practices. Doctor's not going to go spend 6 hours over the weekend or eight, digging into to building a an open claw automation for his email or what have you. But then but there's a lot of folks that want and need some advice on, well, where do I start? Where can I invest and get the most return off the bat? Like, what's the first thing you would automate, or what's the first thing we can do? And then go from there. It's fun.
I mean,
Um,
that home health space could be ripe, super ripe for that.
oh, it is. That space and that is definitely the market segment we're starting in, is sort of medical practices. There's so much time that people want to save, and people should save in the admin side of medicine, that alone could keep firms busy for years. And there's all sorts of fun things out there that everyone from the Epics and Next Gen Healthcare, like the big companies, have started to do AI wise, to a lot of small startups working on little workflow, very specific things that they can do and plug into a workflow that
Mhm.
save time. There's so much time just figuring out what's available, that I realize if I were a doctor, I wouldn't have time to necessarily search all that out. And so
Right, right.
it's
And you would
there's plenty.
probably wouldn't want to rough through it on your own. You wouldn't want to be your own guinea pig for an established business,
That
So
too.
there's going to be a little bit
Yeah,
of. That's awesome, dude. We might need to do a little follow up on this after you got a few, a little bit of time under your belt and some of these conversations, because I have a feeling they're going to be very interesting and enlightening for
I'd be happy
you.
to. Yeah, I'm learning a lot every day. That's the fun part.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
fun
And you
awesome.
part.
find it, the thing that I kind of keep coming back to, at least, in our business, is the focus either on the revenue side or the expense efficiency side. And I can I can picture and envision the revenue saving type things. It's harder for me to, and you're not intimately familiar with our business, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's harder for me to think through how the revenue opportunities are, right? Those are more, but those are the ones that seem to be the real attractive. Let's figure out how to do this, right? Because that could scale big. That's where, you can only save so much money. Um,
Right. Well,
but
let me tell you. I'll tell you a couple of anecdotes from
Mhm.
two of the prospects I've talked to just this week. One of them is an extremely busy physician practice. His one asked for me, and he went through a couple of specific spots or specific areas in the practice. One being prior authorizations. Every doctor hates them. He's got several hours of one person's time that get tied up with that. He said, if you can just make that go away, um, I'll kiss you. No, he didn't say that, but he said that alone could free up enough time for me to see at least one more patient, maybe two per day. Which means if you can save that labor, but also add a nice chunk of revenue with one or two patients a day for a month, right? That hits both. So that was one that was enlightening. The other, and this is another practice owner who we spoke with. He said, "Look, I'm purposely more of a boutique practice, but my staff has time. We just don't have enough patients. So I actually need a marketing solution." And the what we found was, among other things, there's more to it than just social media. But we went and looked, and like the content's not, it doesn't really tell people why you're different, and how the sort of boutique angle can help them, and why it would save them money in certain situations, and none of that. And so, but we also found that they don't really have anyone doing sales. They've tried to incentivize the providers, and they're not really chasing new business either. So like, you have no sales team, you have no funnel, and you have no closer. So of course you don't have new business. Let's fix that for you. So it really became, even though it's a medical practice, the main source of pain for them was nothing medical. It was literally bringing in new business. So we're sort of pursuing both of those right now. So one is a specific targeted time savings in the course of a medical practice staff responsibility, or staff role. The other one is help me build an entire funnel from content to uh, getting the leads in, nurturing them, trying to set up meetings, having a voice call to reach out to those people. We're building sort of a prototype or a concept for that now. So we're trying to figure out what actually makes sense. And yes, there's more to marketing than just content, but you've got to have a differentiator. He already knows his differentiator. It's just not being communicated. So it was interesting that the first two medical practices that we spoke with, one had a very specific medical need, one had a very specific marketing need. Like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I stumbled upon just completely self-serving. You mentioned a little bit, but doctors struggle with some of the things that are being asked of them by insurance companies. Obviously, I'm in
Mhm.
that space, and
Yeah.
the one will be like to get an exception made for something that's, they have to defend. You need to take this drug instead of this drug, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And we were having a hard time getting a physician to respond. And I went and I pulled up, I think it was ChatGPT. I forget which one I was using at the time, but I entered as much as we knew about it, and I had it write the letter, and I sent it to the doctor, and I was like, I don't even understand what this says, but
Hmm.
does this help getting this letter from you? Because we need a letter from you. And and he was like, yeah, this is a lot of what I would have said. And he had to fill in a few little things and edit it, but I was able to keep the ball moving on this appeal basically
Hmm.
by basically, writing a letter I had no business of writing, or starting to write a letter I had no business of starting to write. And
Hmm.
that was a moment where I was like, huh, okay, that's interesting. Um, it's not like I'm pursuing it as an opportunity, because it was just like a thing that presented itself. But I thought that was interesting, and I kind of wondered to myself, I wonder if this is something that doctor might think, oh, I could use this to do these, or if he was just like, I still don't have time to mess with it. He's just, you know what I mean? I have no idea. I didn't follow up or anything like that, but uh,
There's yeah.
it it
I
made it made me think.
There are thousands of those, I'm sure. Little specific things that come up once in a while that no one thinks and sits down to think to automate. And honestly, if you listed the top 20 things that take up his time, it's probably not in the top 10 or 15. Partly because he's saying no. But even if he were to do them, I'm not sure you'd save all that high volume of time. You might save some focus or brain, you know, some context switching, if you want to call it that. But there are lots of those things. I found I got a template. I was writing a response to, or trying to figure out how to respond to a medical bill. And like I said, if you think to ask one of these tools and describe the problem well, it's surprising how much advice and how much helpful advice you can find. The trick is actually describing the problem the right way. And um and I'll tell you what I'm also seeing AI wise is there's a lot of people who use ChatGPT, or now Claude or what have you, and just ask questions and get responses back, right? And those can be helpful, can be concerning in certain situations. You know, I do read the news and watch what's going on, but the sort of frontier side of things where people are setting up these autonomous AI agents that run 24/7, and they basically fulfill a job. Like you might have an AI receptionist. That's an easy example, but there's a company. It's called Sully in the healthcare space that is promoting and also developing with lots of capital AI an AI staff for a practice or for a hospital, and they have like a an AI nurse and an AI this and an AI that, and their vision is provider walks in and maybe there's a tech there to take the blood pressure and give shots, things like that, but everything else you're speaking to an agent in quotes that's not there. It's just a virtual, it's a virtual person. You can speak to them, they respond, they'll take notes on the visit, but they're actually just AI. And I find that interesting. I find it fascinating in one sense because I can't imagine walking around my doctor's office and talking to people that I can't see, but also in the sense that yes, it would save a ton of labor, but most people I don't think would be comfortable with that. So there's a lot of things that can be done that the question becomes, should we do them? And I don't know the answer to all those.
Well, I mean, I'm sure these people that are installing, Claude bots on their Mac Minis right now are going to destroy the
Right?
world before too long.
Yeah.
No, but you mentioned that. I mean, but I mean, even now, I mean, I have a doctor who, he's got some like almost like a meta glasses, right? And one time I didn't realize this is he said, he said, well, hold on, and he started talking, and he's talking to basically a scribe that he's, hooked up through the glasses that's taking notes for him, basically.
Yep.
And interesting, and that could be AI, and actually think about what it could do is like basically mine all the data and all your reports and basically come back to me and say, hey doc, you ought to look at this test. You ought to like
Hmm.
suggest this, like maybe make connections about things like looking at patterns of weight loss, whatever that, the doc can't figure out, and say, let's try this, let's do this,
That
easily
yeah,
do
and
that.
I am seeing. I did see even the practice I visited this week. One of the two I mentioned that has the scribe. He waits till after the patients have left, and he sort of dictates it into his
Hmm.
phone, and it goes right into the EHR. But yes, that's the idea. Yes, if and there are ambient listening tools where it listens to the whole visit, captures the notes. I think his concern was he didn't necessarily want like a complete verbose description of everything that happened. He wanted to just collect the main specific things he was looking for. But
Hmm.
um, but yeah, those exist, and yes, at a point, I think there the question is going to be when do we as a society feel comfortable with those recommendations coming from a system, um, versus the versus presenting and capturing all the data and then letting the physician do the things that we trust physicians to do, if that makes sense. Um,
Mhm. Yeah,
one of
absolutely.
the one of the areas with prior auths is it is it is perfectly, within HIPAA and all those things, for assuming you set the tools up right, to help gather all the information, gather the previous visits and other medications they're on and stuff like that out of the system, but the automation cannot submit the request. That submission has to be performed by the physician because they have to review the information, make sure you're actually requesting the correct medicine and correct dose, and that all of the other criteria have been met. The machine can't do that,
Huh.
right? So there are certain things where and that gets into controlled substances and DEA and things like that, that we've there are some limitations that are put on tech. So where it comes to making recommendations for looking at tests or treatments or conditions, I think that's where it's going to take a bit longer. I think most of the focus right now is how do I help the staff person gather the the test results from this system, gather the most recent medications from this system, go check to see when they were last refilled in this system, and then put all that together for the doctor, because that by itself can save 2 hours or an hour, whatever it is.
It's gonna be amazing. We're not gonna even be able to think of all the ways this is gonna evolve. Fortunately, we have a good solid Jesuit education to lean back on to contemplate all of these evolutions of life and
Exactly.
time.
Exactly.
And speaking
Gore.
of,
Yeah.
our common thread here, our Jesuit education, it might be hard given your path, but can you think of some ways that Jesuit has like kind of helped you through your path in life, and or things that you think of your time at Jesuit that you sort of either look back fondly on, or maybe even wish they'd have gone differently one way or another? Do you have any thoughts on your reflections of Jesuit time?
I do. I would say, I look back and I was probably quieter than I should have been back then, and there were reasons for all that. But I sort of had to come into my own as a person with confidence and those sorts of things over time, and that really took until college and probably after that. And so obviously now I'm a little different than I was back then. But if I had to look back, I didn't participate enough, and I didn't let myself be seen enough. So that's
Now
one
you do.
area.
Now you're doing
Now I am.
TikTok videos, for goodness sakes.
Exactly. I know things are different. But I would say what at the end of the day, it's values, right? I don't I, I I don't stray from the way I was raised, and that definitely includes Jesuit. It's part of who it's part of the development stage, and it becomes who you are. So I'm kind of always conscious of what I believe in, and staying true to that. I don't get to enough events and keep in touch with enough people often enough. So that is definitely true. And Tom, you and I have been trying to catch up for a while, and every once in a while one of us reaches out, and then life takes hold. So my apologies for that on my side.
Yeah,
Um,
same here, man. Same here. We're both
but
playing out of the same sort of struggles right now, time
my
wise.
my return to this area, like, that was great, except now I'm running 50, 60, 70 hours at work, so didn't get the time that I wanted the last couple of years to go out and be more social. But there's maybe this is an introduction or a reminder to two or three people who might remember me. So there's that. And I've always got the goal to be better about that, so we'll see how this year turns out.
What are you filling your time with outside of working 60 hours and 70 hours a week?
Right. Well, besides running the small business and learning what I need to about AI, I honestly, that's been my time the last couple of months. I tend to try to with and I'm not currently married, so don't say I have a family in that sense, but my relationship and her family, a lot of that, we tend to go and do a lot of community events, or just go spend time with my girlfriend's nephews and things like that. So it's sort of a just enjoying time outside of work when I can, and blocking off an evening to not think about those things as much is where I have fun, and go to the park, or go walk the dog around the neighborhood, things like that. It's a simple life. I did for a while. I still play bass, but I don't, not actively. Like, I still know how, but it's been a while since I've picked it up. There's certain hobbies that I would like to get back to. I do occasionally get to work out. I'm in a men's group called F3. So there's fitness, fellowship, and faith. And getting back to Jesuit a little bit, F3 is a kind of a free outdoor workout group, and there's 5 or 6 groups in the area that work out at 5:30 to 6 a.m. Uh, most mornings. I think it's actually 7 days a week. I have not been disciplined enough to get out as often as I'd like to, but fitness is important, and especially after turning 50, keeping myself active, and running a little bit, and doing lots of body weight exercises at 5 in the morning. What's not to like?
Yeah, somebody's roped me into going to a few of those over the years. What's your F3 nickname?
It's pass interference, actually. That is because I was in Atlanta at the time, and the group there it was shortly after the no call. So I said, "Why don't you
That's
call me
great.
no call? It'd be a much shorter name." But it didn't
That's
last.
it.
Tom, what was yours?
Oh, they call me the llama. You
The
know,
llama.
like it was something about the long ball hitter, the llama, Daly, John Dan. Like it's amazing how you're in the middle of a circle and they're like, okay, they start throwing around names and all of a sudden something sticks on you. And yeah, that was me. But
Well, in the small world category, um, you know, this whole idea of doing these Jesuit journeys really stemmed from a project that one of my classmates from Harvard did of our class that graduated from Harvard, and one of the, I don't know, first 10, 15 episodes of that one is a guy I graduated with, not someone I knew, who actually wound up, I think he is like, he's not the original founder of F3, but he was the one who took it national. Like the original founder was local to where he was, and this guy partnered with him and said, "I want to do this." And the guy's like, "I don't really have any interest in that. I'm good. I like what we're doing here, and go take it if you want. But I mean, I don't. It's like not interested in." And this guy was in the group that really kind of took it national for where it is. So small world.
That is
that's
pretty
great.
interesting.
Was he
Yeah.
out of Charlotte by any chance?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep, that would explain
because
it.
I've met some of the randomly I've met some of the guys. When I throw F3 out there, it's got a cult following. I got to be
Yeah.
honest, and it's really a neat organization and thing. But I met a guy that said he was real friendly with one of the initial people that started it, and he's in Charlotte. So I was wondering if that's kind of where it all emanated from, one way or another. But sounds like it might have.
Yeah.
The founding or the first group was in Charlotte, so that checks out.
It does check out. That's wild. Maybe this will inspire me to get back out there. 5 o'clock, very early in the morning. I'm not
That's
sure
early.
if yeah,
That's
it's
early.
early.
Well, and a lot of folks in the whole org says, the reason we do 5:30 is because that's the only time people can control of their own, right? And in Slidell, we tried to set up a group, and we had a couple folks that were able to make it out pretty regularly, but so many people are either going to Stennis or they're going to the city, and they're already driving by 5:30, and 5 o'clock is a little bit too early. 5:30 is too late. Yeah, it's not going to work. So even as many and there's F3s and F3 groups in Europe and Australia. I mean, it's around the world now, but there are areas where just demographics and the traffic patterns and all that, we just can't make it work everywhere. So I end up going to Mandeville or Lakefront usually to work out.
It's good, man. Good for you. Good for you.
Very
I'm gonna
cool.
try to get some inspiration from you, sir. This has
I
been
try.
been absolutely wonderful to catch up with you, sir. I gotta
Absolutely.
say, I'm glad we were able to sort of like make this connection finally. I think we still do need to do a little one-on-one because I'll probably ask you a ton more questions, especially as things kind of keep going for you in the direction that you're going right now, because it is very interesting to me for sure. But we definitely appreciate you taking the time, man, and participating. If you do
Thank
run
you.
across any one of our classmates and tell them not to be afraid and that they need to kind of jump on this too, because it is fun hearing from everybody for sure.
Well, this is fun. I do recommend everybody get their turn in line. I could have said, when I brought up AI, you could have just hung up on me because I do know the popularity of AI right now is not that good, not that high, at least according to the news. So there's a lot of negativity. So I appreciate you being open to listen, and this was a fun conversation. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Well, it was good talking to you. And
Good
take
talking
care,
to you.
man. It's good. We'll talk to you again soon, hopefully.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you both. Have a good evening.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.